Dr. Fez, bro, thank
Yes.
you so much.
Thanks, man.
It's
Thanks
a
for
real
having me.
pleasure. And I mean, bro, anyone that follows you on social media, I think are probably in awe with, firstly, your body, but secondly, every.
You're gonna say that. You're gonna say, oh, he's in awe of my body. Then he like pops something up and he's doing like 30 Ks while looking super ripped. And he's just like, yeah, what's like fat, man? What's fat? I don't need fat. Forget what our thoughts are about long distance running and the fact that you need a certain body fat percentage.
Well, bro, you definitely, I don't think your body knows what fat is. I mean, if we truly, if just basing off social media, I think a lot of people can obviously see you're a medical doctor,
Yeah.
which I think is obviously the most difficult thing that you've probably achieved. This podcast is powered by Dis-Chem Living Fit. With a wide range of supplements and fitness products, they have the perfect product for you regardless of your goal. Dedicated and committed to providing expert sources of information that you can trust and rely on. They are here to motivate, guide, and inspire. Dis-Chem Living Fit, making healthy living easier. Back to the show.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Tell me.
Let me put it this way. I think, and I don't know if you guys caught this conversation because I was asking how old you are. It's an interesting thing. Finished high school 17, went to go dirt. So I was a little younger than some of the people in my class. And I think a lot of us tend to want to be at a certain point reasonably quickly. And the era that we live in, we see a lot of images of people and we assume that they are doing things and they're young and all of these things are happening. So in my mind, I was like, just knock out those 6 years, boom, boom, boom. Knock out the 3 years, boom. And then you can be like one of the youngest surgeons in the country because I'll start specializing and doing all this other stuff. And for me, I just started realizing med school was hard. I'm not going to act like it's not, but I always had a natural propensity to like read and retain information, especially in like crunch time.
From young.
From like young. So if you ask my mother, so I have an older brother. I think you guys caught me slandering him there. So he's a doctor as well. When it came to books and stuff, it was reasonably easy for me to remember information if I needed it. If it's like, okay, there's a test tomorrow, I'm the guy who starts studying the night before. And it's like, what do you do? Because I'll like hold information and I'll be like, okay, get it in. But that's also because I liked doing a whole bunch of stuff and I didn't feel like I liked having to read the same thing in monotony. So that med school was difficult and it made me have to have a certain amount of regimentedness when it came to that. But it wasn't necessarily like the hardest thing.
Would you say you've got a partial photographic memory? Do you think you do?
There are people who ask that, because when I did the presenter search and like the top billing and all of that stuff, when you give me something, I wouldn't call it eidetic or even photographic. I'd say somewhere there I can hold on to it and I can see the page and then I'll be like, okay, page 236, and then I'll be... But then it won't necessarily be me going 10 years from now. It was the tibia that it kind of works within a very short period of time. I think everybody has it. When you spike up some of your stress hormones and your mind really starts firing up, a lot of people are able to hold on to information really well, especially put stress on them. I think tend to hold on to it and hold on to the images a lot, maybe better and maybe a bit longer than maybe the average person. So,
and do you have OCD tendencies at all?
Yes, in certain things. So I have OCD tendencies when it comes to maybe like how I will study for a thing or how I will go about doing prep work for something. But that's usually because if I'm going to go host something or if there's a show that I have and I've got tons of information or lines now that I'm doing acting, there's just a certain rhythm that I get into that helps me lay down that memory in my kind of neurological pathways. So then I'm just like, okay. And it'll be like, give me an hour. Like, just let me take a step for an hour and I'll like sit and I'll kind of do like mindfulness type stuff. I think I saw one of your videos. You were talking about the fact that you meditate in your morning routine. Am I correct? I did my research, even as a guest. The stuff people call meditation, I would also say I meditate, but it's like I'll feel. And I'll be like, I was sitting in the chair. it felt like this in the room. And then I can remember, if it were done when to stun them to, I would have done quickly. If the assassination could trammel up the consequence and catch with ease or cease success. That's my Macbeth speech that I like started off with, his soliloquy. And I can remember exactly when I was laying it down in the chair. And that also, that like audio, visual, sensory type of a stimulus helps me hold information. So in that specific realm, very OCD, bro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there are studies where, because the part of your brain that is associated with memory is also the part of the brain that people with OCD afflictions obviously are affected as well.
Very much so. And I think that's why, even with that, look at you, you're such a sharp. I was watching some of the podcasts last night, and I really like what you do. I saw the debate between Jack Sheriff and the other guy.
That was really a good one.
Yeah. Look at me fluffing you up. It is why I think I do it, but it's also maybe like, is it the egg or the chicken? Did I do it and then go, oh, okay, it's happening? Or was I subconsciously not knowing that that's what I'm doing to associate? But yeah, all the way back, med school was difficult, very difficult. But I think one of the hardest things that I've done, I went to the Mr. World kind of stage, representing South Africa. And I think I felt like, when you feel like you represented yourself as best as you can, you run a race, you hit the cadence, you're like, cool, this feels like I won one of the things that put me through. Speaking great, kept myself in reasonable shape. I was also always open and engaging, trying to engage with all the gents that were there, incredible people from incredible countries. And when it came down to kind of the announcement, as much as you never want to say like, come on, dude, like I feel like you were just like, okay, I felt like because it's based on merit that perhaps I could get it in the title. And then to be the first runner up, so second place, it was something where I was just like, oh, okay, standing in front of all those people, it was like, oh, it's a bit of a difficult thing for your mind to wrap around, because I come from a place where if I put in the work and I put in the hours, if I have a cover that's coming up, I know the kind of regiment that I'm going to hit. I know the kind of look that I'm going to get, and I'm an intentional person when it comes to trying to hit certain marks. And when you feel like you have and you don't quite get it, and it's just like you don't get the thing, I'd never felt it so keenly, but it's also become one of my life lessons where I'm just like, hey, man, the sun doesn't shine out your backside. And just because you feel like you might get it doesn't mean life's going to give it to you. But that also doesn't take away the fact that you put in the time, you did the things you needed to do, and your worth comes from the stuff that you are able to like do. And I think was it Alex Hormozy who said it? The confidence you get from actually doing stuff. Like your confidence needs to come from an accumulation of I have done this and I have done that, and so that means I've proved to myself that I'm somebody who's able to do it. And I think that's one of the big take-home messages that I got from that entire experience. But like in terms of hitting me, I was like, dude, come on, man. I feel like that was something you were gonna get. But yeah.
So which was the country that won?
It was England. England, yeah. But I mean, South Africa hadn't been in the top 10 before. I was the only African representative in the top 5. And yeah, I think it was just an interesting, because I never ever like knew anything about like pageantry, and it was one of the people who were in the Mr. World South Africa who reached out and were like, hey, would you be interested? And I literally went in there just going, okay, dude, I'm just going to try and engage with all the guys that were there, and I'm hopefully going to be able to just be me. So somebody who is competitive but also likes other people to be as good as they can be. Like that's where my competitive nature comes from. Like I never want to step on the guy who's tripped. I want to help him up and then we'll sprint. So like, even if I take the L, I knew I was coming at you when you were at your best, at your peak. So coming into that kind of fold with all the people that I came into, I think it was like a great experience and something I never thought I was going to do. And yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
And that process of, lifting up the people around you and bringing them with you on the journey, is that maybe stemming from having the siblings?
It is.
Was there competition between?
Listen. Ah, man, I was laughing about it the other day. So me and my brother have like one big fight. Where do you have siblings? I mean,
Yeah, I got an older brother.
Older brother, okay. And you're gonna tell me if you guys have had this. There's a time where you guys are growing up and you can kind of be physical with each other. You can play, you can push, you can use all your force because you're angry. But there comes a time, usually if it's an older brother and it's like a significant amount of gap, he hits puberty and you are still lagging. Now, he's like, I'm going to go 100%, might injure you quite badly. And that comes, like with us, it came with like a fight where it was something small. I mean, I was wearing his socks. We were sitting down and he saw me with these socks. My brother is like very particular about his clothes. He has sneakers that he keeps in the box, like clean. He still calls me to this day telling me, okay, there's this at the sneaker shack or whatever it is at Jesster. Go check out. Maybe I might buy it, Jordan 1s, etc., etc. So I was wearing his socks. And he's like, hey, man, are those my socks? I was like, nah, whatever. I'm just wearing your socks. And he's like, nah. Why are you wearing my socks? I was like, hey, man, I'm wearing your socks. Like, what are you going to... He literally got up, told me to take them off. He drew the line. I was like, nah, bro. Nah, I'm not taking them off. So I stood up. And at this point, he had like started his growth spurts.
What's the age gap?
3 years.
Okay.
So he was significantly taller than me at the time. And he was a bigger guy. So he played rugby as a prop. So... And I was the little kid who, I don't know why, maybe you have a similar mindset. I was just very dark. I don't care how big you are, you can still catch the smoke, like as a kid. And so he was like, no, take them off. And I was like, no. Like he tried to grab me to like make me force, pushed him back, pushed me. We started to wrestle. Now, my mother,
what age were you two?
So he was, I think he was 12 going on 13, if I'm not mistaken. So I was about 9 going 10. So yeah, so we started wrestling and so my mother, my father passed away when we were very young. This is also the prefix there. She was sitting there. She was tired. She had worked the whole day. It was in the evening and she was like, stop. We were like, no. She was like, hey, stop. Nah, this was it. This was going to be the fight. So she was just like, you know what? Took my little sister. My gran was staying with us at the time. She took my gran and they bounced. Got into the car, bounced. So no, it's just me and him. Wherever this is going to go is wherever this is going to go. So we keep wrestling. We wrestle into my granny's room. I run. I hit him with the low blow because I realized his testes had dropped, so he was a bit more sensitive. That stuff, I just realized he was always very sensitive. So I hit him, and he was like, oh, but he recovered. This is how intense this fight was. I was like, that's usually my go. If I hit him there, the fight's done. I get to run away. Grab me, tussle. We end up in our room. So we went from the living room, my granny's room, our room. And then at some stage, he's choking me out, starting to see black in the corners, and I've got him, and I'm trying to hit him. And then he looks at me and I look at him, and I think he realized it's either he finishes the job or it's done. Because I'm not giving him these socks unless I'm on the ground, passed out or dead. And I think he just let go. Walked up, we had a double bed, went into his bed. I kind of gathered myself, climbed up to my top bed. On the bed, took off my socks, put them into a ball, and then jumped down, put them there next to his bed, went up there, all in silence. And after that day, we never touched up or anything. Verbally, we could speak, but there was always just that line where I think we realized, we're at a place where we're not kids anymore. It'll be a hit, and then you cry. It'll be I'm going to damage you. So, yeah, it was... I think he'll laugh because the reason I laughed initially is because he had sent me a message. There was a funny little reel on Instagram where they were when your siblings, when you fight too far, and then the kangaroos hit into a fence and the fence broke down and the one kangaroo kind of looked around. That was literally our fight. And we're okay, cool, dude. We're good.
Yeah, I think it's special actually to have those experiences with your brother because obviously it's play fighting to an extent. Obviously it could progress, but you're in that situation where you're also learning about yourself, you're learning about other people, you're learning about, what limits you can push with those around you. I remember the one altercation I had with my brother where it was...
Wait, is your brother also into fitness?
Yes,
and he's okay. You see, that's where the danger goes. When both of you are okay, yeah, go ahead.
So I can't tell exactly how old I was. So predating this, he would when I wasn't obviously physically capable to go against him, he'd hold me down and then spit in my mouth. So he would literally hold my mouth open and spit inside my mouth, and it was disgusting. Then there was this one time we were on the beach, and I think I was probably like 10, he was 13. We were wrestling, and then this was the one point where I had some sort of strength, and I was able to get back at him. And then I remember grabbing his head and pushing him against the sand and like hitting his head on the side of the sand. And since then, we never wrestled again. He never spat in my mouth again.
That's that little point. I always say, like, there's a point where, and I think especially with guys, I don't know, I've never actually asked girls and like women, like sisters and things, but I think with guys, you just kind of realize, listen, bro, if we do this again, and especially because I kind of hit my growth spurt and I got a little bigger than him, it was kind of like, okay, we're gonna hurt each other, and he's very competitive, I'm incredibly competitive. So then it's like, let's not even test it. We'll do runs and stuff. Like, he's into marathon running now. He's trying to go for the comrades, so he's been in that prep time. So we'll do silly little things like that. He's the guy who goaded me into trying to do the Ironman. I don't know why. That just shows that we're still quite juvenile. But he was like, he's going to do an Ironman. So am I going to do an Ironman? I was like, okay, well, if you want to do an Ironman, we'll both do an Ironman. That's fine. But yeah, it's just out of that competitiveness without us actually being physical is the way we do things now.
You mentioned your dad passing away when you were young.
Yeah, man.
What was, that like? How old were you? And then obviously, did that possibly shape how you are today with, the level of success that you always chase through every single avenue in your life?
I think, to some degree. You have both your parents? Yeah. So I think, just the context of it, my mother was pregnant at the time with my younger sister. There's 3 years between me and my sister and 3 years between me and my brother. Something my mother feels like she's very Da Vinci Code about. But anyway, she's like, 3, 3 of you. So it was in a car accident. I was just about to hit 3. So I couldn't quite recall him. I can't recall him. You hear stories about it. But from then on, she then had to raise us. And we used to stay we were in the rural parts of KZN and then moved to the township. And then when that happened, she was like, she doesn't want us to be in an environment, and especially me, because I was very much the guy, I told you, I just run off and do stuff because I just needed to be stimulated. Didn't want me to fall into the bad side of things. So she took us into the suburbs in South Coast. So I always keenly felt like at any point in time, having one parent, I could go from having a family, coming back from school and stuff, to being an orphan. Because I was just like, if you don't have both your parents, technically you're an orphan. So I think that was a seed that grew a certain level of low-lying anxiety, but also going, hey man, like, you're going to need to make it, because you could see, like, my mom was a hard worker, my granny was a hard worker. My granny had worked kind of as a domestic worker, and then my mother had finally been able to go to like tertiary education. She became a teacher and then a headmistress, and then with that she kind of wanted us to do something as well with our lives that was quite significant. And I was always like, well, I have to do something. Like, I have to be able to say that all the things she sacrificed, all the hours she worked, was for something. And I think that ended up kind of starting that fire inside of me, where I was just like, at any point in time, the barrier between a life that is dependable and I can predict can become volatile and unpredictable. Because if she passed, I didn't know who'd get us. And I was also like, I have an older brother, and I feel like once he turned 18, I was like, I wouldn't want him to now be the person who had to stop med school and figure us out as like the person who was now the primary caregiver. So I think it was almost always like that was that hunger, or as Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says, that wolf that's there, that's always hungry and you wanting to feed it. It was like, at the end of the day, I have to improve myself to the point where you can throw me off somewhere, anywhere in the world, and I'll be able to pivot and move and become somebody that can do something. So be it being able to speak, being able to understand what's happening around the world, being able to do any physical labor. I'm the guy, I would be the intern who is there on call and I'm mopping the floors with the cleaner person, because I'm just like, hey man, let's just do this. I've done taking care of the babies and the patients are all fine. Let me help you out, because I feel like, why not? I have some time on my hands. So I never in my mind ever selectively thought this job was better than that job, because I always felt like if I couldn't do this, if the hospital didn't have any post, I should be able to go pick up the trash or the garbage. And I honestly don't particularly care if somebody's like, oh, aren't you Dr. Fez? I'm like, hey man, we've all got to make a living, so respect every job, because not having work means that you won't have funds to look after the people you care about. And that's way more important than whatever anybody else thinks.
And I think that's the biggest thing is in life in general is you shouldn't care what anyone else thinks, because their observation of you isn't a clear image of you. It's actually a reflection of themselves.
Exactly.
Because there's someone, I mean, if you go, as you said, if you had to be sweeping the floors and someone judged you, you wouldn't care. That person is just because they might be embarrassed to be doing that job because they feel like other people would judge them, so then they judge you. So essentially, it's actually the onus isn't on you for being in that job. It's on them for being so self-conscious that they can make fun of someone that maybe earns less than them and is doing something that will embarrass them.
Exactly. And it's for me, it's one of the craziest things. And the older I get, the more I just realize we live in a social construct, right? And with that construct, there's certain people who do things that people go, oh, that's really great. And then there are things that people go, oh, well, that's not like as glamorous. And I'm just like, hey man, we all are born into this world. Where you're born is like a pick you draw, you get whatever you get, and then you have to make it through life. And life is just this hard thing. And if you are able to get up every morning and provide for the people you love and feel like you as a person are doing the thing that you need to do and you're proud of yourself, I can't judge how that looks, because I've gone through some difficulties. I come from like my own hardships, and that stuff's been tough for me. And I couldn't have done any of the stuff I could have done if somebody was like, yo, dude, you didn't have a dad. Well, that's crazy. Who taught you to shave? You learned how to shave on YouTube? Oh, that's so embarrassing. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm literally here. I'm a functioning person in society. I try to help people out, and that's the bare minimum. So yeah, it's interesting. And it's also interesting, it's funny. Where do you hold your fat on your body? This is going to be a very random tangent. Where do you hold your fat?
My stomach and my face.
Your stomach and your face. So you have a six-pack when you are sub 10, sub 15?
Yeah, I would say so, probably sub 12.
Sub 12.
Okay, my definition of a six-pack, I say I have a six-pack if I'm stage ready.
You see, but now I also forget.
In general society's terms, I would say if I'm below 12.
Below 12, right? That's amazing. Like, you know how this goes in the composition of your body. Fat can be stored in some of the most random places. The last place I will lose definition is my stomach. Growing up, I was always just like, I just have like abs. It's fine. And then all of a sudden, because of the society we live in, there's a certain amount of cachet you get from having a six-pack. I'm like, dude, I could be unfit, incredibly unfit, and I still have a six-pack. People are like, nah, dude, that's you are in. And I'm like, that's such an arbitrary thing. Like, it could have... Maybe back in the day, it was like if you held fat in your booty, you were somebody who was clearly prosperous. They assumed you had funds because you were able to. But like today, I'm just like, I didn't earn that. That's just kind of my lot in life. Has it helped? Sure. Have I been able to get some covers because of it? Sure. But like, does that now make me go, well, Jess, I'm better than you, bro, because I can clearly see that at 15%, you're a bit soft there. You have like 6 instead of 8, your serratus anterior isn't. No. So then I'm just like, oh, okay, now I can stop having to look there. I can start focusing more on like me and like trying to iron out the stuff that I've kind of accumulated through my life, because we all get some amount of trauma or warped ways of seeing life. And I think for me anyway, the big thing is like when I'm about to die, I can go, dude, okay, I fixed the thing that kind of got a bit messed up in my life when I was young. And sometimes you never fully fix it. I was listening to Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, great podcast. And they were talking about, or he mentioned that having sat with enough people, he kind of realizes the big traumas don't actually go away. You just find ways to be able to deal with them. So if it's like that big voice that you got because you were young and you went through some sort of trauma, it gets quieter after you've done 10 Ks a day. Then people do 10 Ks a day. Or you're a Goggins who does however many miles a week. And if you don't do that, that voice gets louder and your life starts to look a bit crazier. And so you have to figure out how to best quieten that voice and be as peak or as high performance as you can be.
Well, I heard, I saw someone shared a reel the other day, and it fits perfectly with that. It was this lady, she was saying, people say time heals all wounds. Time doesn't heal all wounds, choices do. It's your choices to get past those certain things because, time doesn't heal you from your dad passing away. Yeah. It's choices that you've made to help you cope and compensate and have a healthy relationship with him passing away, more than obviously just living your whole life with a chip on your shoulder because my dad passed away at 3 years old.
And that's comfortable, right, dude? And it's so funny because even in things like, let's talk bodybuilding, because I think we both appreciate that. And I'm incredibly impressed that you've been on the stage and you've done that. Because bodybuilding, I feel like I tell people, sure, you can talk about like insertion points and whatever's the peak genetic structuring. If you're more a Bumstead or whatever it is, it's such a mental thing where you can go, I don't have the best insertions, but what I can control is my conditioning going in. And a lot of the time it stops being about whether or not you go to gym, but more about like mentally. Can I mentally stay in the hole for 6 weeks and do the things I'm supposed to do, and then do that again and again and again with the amount of muscle development and density that comes with continuous kind of time under tension, repetitions, recovery, all of that stuff, until I am at a place where I can get a pro card. And I always say, like, I'm not saying it's easy to get a pro card, but like getting a pro card is doable to a large amount of the population. Winning at the professional level, I feel like is for very elite type of genetic lotteries, but like getting the card, if you really want it, is about like, are you the kind of person who will stick out and be like, hey man, I don't have the best body, I feel up at 12%, some people feel great, but I'm just going to keep doing it, because saying that's just the cards life gave me means you probably won't leave the house, because you're not the smartest, you're not going to be the one who got the silver spoon, you're not going to be the best at the job. Just naturally you're going to have to work at it. So then if you go every time something happens, life didn't give me this and this and this, you're not leaving the house. You are literally staying at home going, let me wait for the next life, because then maybe I'll become 6'5", my body will look like this, I'll be super smart, I'll be very good looking, and like everything will be rolled out for me. That's also boring.
And I think, I've often been driving, and let's say I see someone begging on the side of the road, and I'll think, why am I so fortunate to be in a car, to have grown up with wealthy parents, to have never had to think about how am I going to afford dinner tonight or whatever. Like, what have I done in my life to be fortunate enough to have never experienced the hardship that this person on the side of the road has? Yeah. And there's no answer to that other than life is just unfair. And as you say, sometimes it's just up to the decisions that you make to, yes, you've been dealt a bad hand, but what are you going to do from that to make it better?
It's the choice thing you said. I honestly so fully agree with what you say in terms of choice, because I was the kid who, I used to take out magic books, like sleight of hand, like put a thing in here and like it looks, because I was like, in my head, I would also sketch and I'd draw. In my head, I was like, the people who are really good at this thing just decided to just do it. Like, that's just how I felt. I was like, why can't I like do a flourish and take something out? Or why can't I draw you as you are if it just is about repetition over and over? And for me, that's, I think, one of the things that I've realized is like the choice you make today will map how your life will look in a year. And the reason your life looks like it does today is the choice you made a year ago. So the thing, it might seem silly that I'm drinking 4 glasses of water today, but 6 months, a year from now, when my skin looks better, when my my chemistry in my body, hydration, everything, it's because I did the thing that everybody was like, okay, he's just gonna, it's a choice. It's a choice. And I was like, okay, so it's like a game. I'm just always gonna wake up and do XX R2 L1, XX R2 L1, XX R2 L1. I'm just one day. The guy who wins the lotto, usually he's been playing lotto for 30 years and hasn't won, but that one ticket is the one that got him. So yeah, I think that's probably like the ethos that I've run with for most of my life.
This podcast is powered by Dis-Chem Living Fit. With a wide range of supplements and fitness products, they have the perfect product for you regardless of your goal. Dedicated and committed to providing expert sources of information that you can trust and rely on. They are here to motivate, guide, and inspire. Dis-Chem Living Fit, making healthy living easier.